Ha inizio la seduta.
The session is now open.
Prego, Senatore.
Senator CASINI has the floor. Dear friends, we can now begin this morning's panel on sustainability and food security within the context of the pandemic. The title given to this session optimistically refers to a time after the pandemic. In fact, we have to deal with the fact that the pandemic is still recording a number of new cases. And sadly, its death toll, according to the World Health Organization's figures, is now dangerously close to 5 million victims. Now, to discuss the topics of this third part of the Rome P20 summit, we have with us Mr. Dongyu, Director General of the FAO, and Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina, Mohammed, who has sent us a video message. Allow me to share a few remarks to open our discussion. This theme brings together elements which are only seemingly unrelated. And yesterday, during the introduction of our discussion, the President of the Senate, Madam Casellati, and the President of the Chamber of Deputies, Mr. Fico, both underscored the fact that these elements are sustainability, food security, and the pandemic. Let me begin with a clear figure. The World Food Programme has estimated that approximately 270 million people could currently be faced with serious or critical food insecurity. This estimate, this figure, is double the one prior to the pandemic in 2019. Let me also mention figures regarding another country which is a priority as far as the international political agenda is concerned, Afghanistan. Already before the pandemic, 17 million people in that country were already facing a situation of food insecurity. And half of children under the age of 5 were already at risk of acute malnutrition. This is the tragedy of poverty that the pandemic crisis has only made worse, unfortunately. Even here in Italy, 4 million people who were already living in absolute poverty have now been joined with 1 million new poor people. And the FAO's recent report, drawn up jointly with UNICEF and IFAD, together with the WFP and the World Health Organization, refers to the fact that over 1/10 of the world's population, equal to roughly 810 million people, is undernourished. We're joined today by high representatives of the FAO who will be able to explain these figures to us in greater detail. What is certainly true is that we are experiencing a real emergency affecting a significant part of humankind. International data report that the economic recovery is underway. According to the OECD, the world's GDP is expected to increase by 5.8%, with an increase equal to 4.4% in 2022. Therefore, there is reason to be optimistic. There is reason for hope, but there are two factors that can undermine the global economic growth projections. The first factor is that this growth will occur following the significant decline we experienced last year, equal to 3.5% globally. The The second figure, which is no surprise, is the huge disparity in the distribution of global wealth. According to studies, the world's 1% richest families owns 43% of all of the world's wealth, whereas the poorest 50% of the world only own 1% of this wealth. 175 super rich people each hold net assets worth at least $50 million. In other words, this means that less than 0.1% of the world's population holds 25% of global wealth. This figure is a figure that we cannot be indifferent to. And there can be no political ideology or political party involved. This fact jars with the increase of poverty in the world that I was referring to earlier. A few days ago, the UN General Assembly was held in New York. Many people, including our Prime Minister, made clear commitments regarding global vaccination and regarding the enhancing of the COVAX program. And particularly noteworthy were the remarks by the President of the United States regarding the donation of 500 million doses of vaccines to the poorest countries. These are major commitments because obviously without an effective way of countering the pandemic, we will not have stable and lasting economic growth. But we are still very far from achieving goal number 2 of the 2030 Agenda, which was adopted by the UN only 6 years ago, with a dream of ending hunger in the world and achieving food security in 2030. These are the figures. These are the elements we should think about. And my task during this panel is to act as moderator, and therefore, let me just make a few suggestions, make a few remarks that I can present to our speakers. Allow me to make one final remark, referring to the fact that in order to deal with global challenges in an effective way, there can be no alternative to the multilateral approach, which is essential if we truly want to achieve tangible results. I'm referring to the environmental issues, which of course have impacts on the farming systems globally, and on the possibility of offering adequate nutrition to a large part of mankind. And finally, let me remind you of the rules for our debate today. Requests for the floor have already been collected, as you know, and they will take place according to the alphabetical order of the countries in English, beginning with member countries, followed by guest countries. And in order to allow everyone to take the floor, it is essential to comply with our time limits. Thank you for your kind attention. And without further ado, let me give the floor to the Director General of the FAO, Mr. Dongyu. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CASINI. Excellencies, Maria Elisabeth Castellardi, President of Italy, Senator, Robert Fico, the President of Italy Chamber of the Deputies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be invested by the House, jointly by the two presidents for this P20. It's the first time since FAO moved from Washington, D.C. to Rome 70 years ago in 1951. FAO-DG had a special privilege to come to this House to address you, not only to Italy friends, and to the G20 plus friends. 2020 marked a turning point for the world for three reasons. First, Even before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were off track to end the world hunger and malnutrition by 2030. 811 million people in the world faced the hunger in 2020. The pandemic contributed to the largest single-year increase in global poverty and hunger in decades. This means 97 million people more moved to extreme poverty in 2020, and up to 161 million more people faced hunger than in 2019. Second, already before the outbreak of the pandemic, we were off track to meet the Paris Agreement goal to limit global warming to well below 2, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius, comparable to the pre-industrial levels. We have sound evidence that greenhouse gas emissions from human activities, industrialization, and urbanization, include agriculture and livestock, impact on the climate crisis, and are the significant driver of the climate change. At the same time, the climate crisis has both direct and indirect impacts on agri-food productivity and threatens our ability to ensure global food security, eradicate poverty, achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Agri-food systems are both a victim and a contributor to the climate crisis and must therefore be the part of the solution. The third, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic emphasized the need to redouble effort to prevent zoonotic infectious diseases. To stepping up the implementation of the One Health approach will be the key to better address the zoonotic spill-off holistically. Excellencies, this brings me to the importance of our meeting today. This meeting is possibly one of the most critical gatherings held under the Italian G20 presidency. It brings together the officials that can develop policies and legal instruments to address the pressing challenges that we face together globally. Global access to the health nets can contribute to reducing the cost related to both health and the climate crisis by 2030. The right incentives can transform agri-food systems from the production to consumption, thereby promoting food security and better nutrition, decreasing food loss and waste, and reducing the carbon footprint of agri-food sectors. International agricultural trade remains a critical tool to foster global food security. FAO flagship matchmaking, evidence-based, country-led, country-owned, hand-in-hand initiatives aims to accelerate agricultural transformation and sustainable rural development to eradicate poverty, SDG 1, and end hunger and all forms of malnutrition, SDG 2. Italy, as a G20 presidency, has once again demonstrated outstanding commitment and leadership in the area of food security by convening the first ever joint meeting of G20 ministers for foreign affairs and economic development, and by implementing the Matera Declaration, which renewed and strengthened the G20 political commitment to global food security. The Matera Declaration, together with FAO, initiated food coalition in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We should give them big applause to support the food security globally. That's Italia's special role in this special time. The Food Coalition is working to leverage high-level political, financial, and technical expertise in supporting the country's demands. Dear colleagues, FAO has been supporting the role of parliamentarians in the fight against hunger and malnutrition for more than a decade. FAO has helped to create parliamentary alliance in every region of the world. This alliance have already passed more than 35 laws on school feeding, family farming, climate crisis, small-scale fisheries, food loss and waste, and many other key areas. FAO, recognizing the parliamentarians as strategic partners, as they provide legal frameworks, approve the public budget allocations, ensure the government accountability on international commitments. FAO's technical support to more than 45 parliamentary alliances against hunger in the world was crucial during the pandemic, as it contributed, for example, to the passing of several laws to mitigate the impact of the trade and the movement restriction on smallholder farmers. Parliamentary have been strengthening the political will needed to build back better. Your policy choices, guidance, and influence beyond the G20 members as well. As such, this meeting is an important venue for the policy dialogue, launching the new initiatives and mechanisms that will have a global impact. Coherence in the formulation and implementation of policy and investments among food, health, social protection, and the environment systems worldwide is key. By building on existing synergies and working collectively towards more efficient and effective agro-food systems, FAO is committed to continue support national and regional parliaments in their efforts to improve the food security and the poverty elimination through national legislation, including by facilitating access to technical knowledge and data, and by promoting the exchange of good practices, experiences, and approaches, especially innovative approaches. FAO stands ready to working together with you to achieve the more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food system for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, a better life for all, leaving no one behind. This year, Italy G20 presidents set a big tone for the people, planet, and the prosperity. It's really timely in line with the new FAO strategy framework and SDGs agenda, 2030 agenda. I hope what new message take over, you can take it from me today. When you talk about people, we need happy. When you talk about the planet, we need harmony. When you talk about the prosperity, we need a bumper harvest for farmers, for the society. So 3P, I offer you 3H. That's my recommendation to the G20 and beyond the G20. Last, before I close, I would say in Italy, quando la gente è felice, io sono felice. Grazie mille. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for you. And now I give the floor in video message to the Vice Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina MOHAMMED.
Excellencies, distinguished members of Parliament, I thank the speakers of the Italian Senate and the Chamber of Deputies for convening this important P20 session on sustainability and food security after the pandemic. We are gathering at an important moment, midway between the recent United Nations Food Systems Summit and the upcoming G20 meetings in Italy. Food is not a mere commodity. It is a right. It impacts every aspect of our health and well-being. And we can only achieve an inclusive recovery from this pandemic and deliver on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development if we transform our food systems. This message came through loud and clear during the Food Systems Summit on the 23rd of September. More than 160 member states, including 85 heads of state and government, joined over 50,000 people around the world in pledging to change the way we produce, process, consume, and dispose of food. Ahead of the summit, 148 governments led powerful multi-sector dialogues to strengthen existing plans and creating pathways for transforming food systems by 2030. The summit highlighted that action must be driven at the country level by governments in their local contexts. But it also identified and galvanized 5 action areas to drive progress, including nourishing all people, boosting nature-based solutions, advancing equitable livelihoods, decent work and empowering communities, building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, stresses, and number 5, accelerating the means of implementation. Country implementation is also anchored by movements in key constituencies, such as producers, indigenous people, women and youth. These important constituencies represent issues that parliamentarians have responsibility over. The United Nations system will support national governments to come through on this agenda. Parliamentarians have a key role to play. Firstly, as parliamentarians, you will drive country leadership for implementation by adapting and introducing policies and incentives to encourage the shifts we need across different sectors to transform food systems. Secondly, as leaders in your countries, you will use the opportunity that COVID-19 provides to invest in a resilient recovery. Thirdly, you will make the budget, governance and policy decisions that support the necessary investments for implementation. I urge you to leverage the momentum that we have built. Together, we can act for all people, our planet, and collective prosperity. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. La discussione.
The discussion is now open. I'd like to ask all of the colleagues to please comply with the 5-minute limit, and I will remind you of when your time is up. The floor now goes to Artur Lira, who is the President of the Chamber of Deputies of Brazil. You have the floor, sir. Madam President of the Senate, Mr. President of the Chamber of Deputies, Honorable Moderator, fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen. Inevitably, in an interconnected world such as ours, the health emergency brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of the world's countries. Solving the pandemic requires a global effort in which all of the countries with stronger economies can share their expertise and their resources with those states in greater need. I'd like to share with you some of the things done by the Brazilian Parliament to promote sustainability and food security during the coronavirus pandemic. On the 7th of April 2020, Parliament approved the so-called agri-food law with a goal of modernizing our agri-food system by opening access to resources and lowering interest rates and other costs. 3 months later, Parliament approved legislation on the measures to reduce food waste and to foster food donation for human consumption. Legislation which authorizes businesses such as bars, restaurants, supermarkets, and food cooperatives to donate food to people who face poverty. In August 2020, Parliament adopted the so-called Assis Carvalho law on emergency measures vis-à-vis support to be offered to smallholder farms. This year we created investment funds to support the agro-industrial supply chains, which is a tool to mobilize resources for the agri-food sector on financial markets. In June this year, we approved further legislation regarding rural real estate as a way of recognizing authorizations given to landowners in frontier states. Now, the need to promote sustainability has received a special focus by the Brazilian Parliament. As I mentioned, in 2021, we approved a law establishing the national policy on payments for environmental services. Now, the rules regulating this sector is an important incentive for the conservation of our natural resources and for sustainable development. These payments can be made in many different formats, not just through direct payments, but also by services to improve social conditions in rural and urban communities, among other things. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to say that this entire legal framework, which was approved swiftly and with determination by Brazil's parliament, has been essential in order to curb the effects of the health crisis. According to the International Institute of Statistics of Brazil, the GDP in the agricultural sector in Brazil increased by 2% in 2020 compared to the previous year. In 2019, agriculture contributed to 5.1% of Brazil's GDP. In 2020, this figure rose up to 6.8%. In the same way, Brazilian agricultural exports reached $100 billion in 2020, up by 4.1% compared to the previous year. And as of June 2021, this year, the agribusiness exported over $61 billion, up by 20.9% compared to the volumes traded in the same period last year. Now, these are results which are extremely satisfactory. We are mindful of the strategic importance of Brazilian food production for global food security. And we have committed to make sure that this extraordinary offer of foods, which contribute so much to reducing hunger worldwide, can be produced in an increasingly sustainable way. This is a commitment that we are guided by and inspired by in all of our Brazilian activities in our parliament. Thank you. Thank you for your remarks. We now have Du De-yin, who is Deputy President of the Agricultural and Rural Commission of the Chinese National People's Assembly.
Your Excellency President CASINI, Excellencies, good morning and good afternoon. Food security is indeed fundamental to sustainable development. China always places high importance on food security and has achieved basic self-sufficiency through independent efforts. This has contributed to the notable improvement of the quality of our people's life. In 2020, China's grain output was 669.5 million tons. Our annual grain output, the biggest of the world, has stayed above 650 million tons for 6 years in a row, with 100% self-sufficiency of rice and wheat. In the process of containing COVID-19 and advancing economic recovery, members of the National People's Congress have earnestly fulfilled our legislative and supervisory responsibility to safeguard our country's food security and maintain the momentum of sustainable development. We carried out thematic studies and produced multiple reports on strictly protecting farmland, ensuring a stable amount of land for crop farming, promoting the development of high standard farmland, improving the strategic food reserve system, and providing incentives for peasants. These reports have been handed to relevant departments of the government for implementation. We actively advanced legislation on food security. Our Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee worked together with relevant departments of the government to draft a law on safeguarding food security, which will establish a legal framework on the production, processing, circulation, reserve, and emergency allocation of grains, as well as on preventing food waste. The draft will soon be submitted to the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress for review. Last April, the National People's Congress passed the Anti-Food Waste Law of China. This law defined the respective responsibilities of the government, catering businesses, and consumers in preventing food waste, and established rules on food waste caused in the process of production, processing, circulation, and reserve, thus setting up China's legal framework against food waste. The National People's Congress of China is also working on revising the seed law to enhance protection of IPR in the seed industry and encourage seed breeding innovation in order to increase grain output with better seeds. We are also drafting a law on conservation of black soil to strengthen its protection in northeastern China and promote its sustainable use. In this way, we hope to safeguard our national food security in the long term. In conclusion, China stands ready to work with the international community to improve global governance on food and agriculture, to safeguard global food security, and build a world free of hunger and poverty. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Adesso do la...
I will now give the floor to Letizia Semple, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of France. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, speakers. In my first speech, I mentioned the mirror clauses of the trade treaties, whereby we ask imported products the same conditions apply to local products. This wouldn't be possible without the denominations of origin. Every consumer has the right to know where his or her food was produced and processed. This is a safeguard for quality. This information are now part and parcel of a policy of protection ensured by the denominations of origin, and farmers are striving to ensure quality and production and processing. For instance, the European Union produces over 3,400 DOCs and DOCGs within the food quality system. The geographical indications, the protected denominations, and all the other acronyms and traditional specialties, all of these are guaranteed. Well, the DOP is a denomination whereby all steps of processing and production are monitored and tracked in order for to ensure quality. The DOC protects products in our territory. All of this is pivotal. In the future French presidency of the European Union, I have proposed that the French government puts this on the debate agenda, especially within the Agricultural Council. It is important for the French presidency to submit concrete results and outcomes for consumers. Within the framework of these activities, I have come to understand that the denominations of origin are not that widespread all over Europe and worldwide. The politics of based on awareness raising on this products must be promoted. I welcome the recent bilateral agreements that ensure the protection of many specialized denominations aimed at generalizing this protection on our territory. This will be done through interparliamentary meetings. And against this backdrop, I would like these denominations to be part and parcel of the final declarations of the COP26. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to an Italian colleague, the chairman of the Committee on Agriculture of the Italian Senate, Gianpaolo Vallardi. Let me take this opportunity and I would like to inform you that in case there are others who would like to take the floor, they must inform the presidency, as there's still room for this. Senator Vallardi, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to extend my greetings to the Speaker of the Senate, Maria Elisabetta Alberti Casellati, Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Roberto Fico, and all presidents of states who are here today. I appreciate the very important theme of this morning's session, which is all the more timely, sustainability and food security after the pandemics. Food is life, is survival, is nutrition. At the same time, it is also discovery, pleasure, conviviality. A pleasure of being together. The pandemics has taught us how important this is. During the endless days and months of lockdowns, families have become increasingly attached to issues such as health, food security, and respect for the environment. So these sensitivities have become stronger as opposed to the past. So no doubt we've understood how we managed to recover from this crisis. Well, it was thanks to the priceless work of doctors, nurses, and researchers. We did so thanks to scientists who worked on vaccines, but we did it also thanks to the tireless work of farmers who have been feeding us while we were locked down in our homes. Italian food is certified by the Made in Italy label, our Mediterranean diet. Our Mediterranean diet, when it comes to the Italian system, includes over 295 DOCs and 123 wines among DOCs and DOCGs. So we are over 523. Our Mediterranean diet has also been on the list of the UNESCO Immaterial Cultural Heritage for over 11 years now. Our Mediterranean diet is a backbone of longevity of peoples who follow this diet. This is confirmed by the recent Instat data certifying that Italy has the highest number of ultra-centenarians in Europe. The other side of the coin is, of course, the worrying phenomenon of the Italian sounding, whereby Italy is faced with over 100 billion euros of losses a year, and this underlines that our food, our made-in-Italy products are exposed to counterfeiting and are by far the best and most appreciated in the world. So more so that unfortunately they also rank first in terms of imitations. If they weren't that good, they wouldn't be copied and imitated. And on this, let me tell you that I do not share the recent ideas put forward by the European Commission, since it's willing to adopt assessment methodologies based on a proposed nutritional label on food safety by resorting to the so-called traffic light rating, which would absurdly jeopardize the authenticness of some of our excellent products, such as olive oil, cured ham, and cheese. We must also underline that the so-called Italian sounding system is still ongoing, and there are also attempts of pseudo-legalization, including via the European Commission, and this has been underlined by the recent case of the Croatian Prosek, whereby very Italian Prosecco is imitated. The Mediterranean diet, our food product, and our cuisine, this is our cultural heritage that is rooted in our passion, professionalism, and fantasy of our farmers, craftsmen, and cooks. Food security is and must be the milestone upon which we must build back together with farmers and food operators our food future. Today, people are more aware of the need to have safe and quality food as well as sustainable environment. We must protect our environment at any cost in order to pass it on to our sons and daughters. The ongoing climate change is profoundly changing world balances. Management of water, the increase in population, and the increased demand for food, all of this require an increasingly efficient, effective, and technologically advanced agriculture. Today, more than in the past, farmers play a pivotal role for the society and environmental protection. He or she bears more responsibilities as opposed to the past. And today, a farmer is no longer just someone who would plant and harvest wheat and breed a few animals. Today, a farmer is and must be a guardian of our environment. In other words, it has to be a technical expert that knows and manages the technologies, technological tools. He must look after biodiversity in cooperation with responsible authorities, and he or she must also manage water resources. A farmer is an environmental technician that respects and nurtures his land. He's not well. Please. No, you can take a break. Please sit down. You can continue. Also, if you sit down, yeah, it's okay. So our farmer is an environmental technician that nurtures its land as a genuine working tool. A farmer is a starting point for food security and environmental sustainability, and it is an indispensable ally for the protection of our planet and our future. If we all commit to the respect for the environment, we will have a better future for everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, dear colleague. I will now give the floor to the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, of the National Assembly of Turkey, Aki Kayataycik. You have the floor.
Sayın Başkanlar, değerli
Esteemed speakers of the Parliament, valuable participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank the Italian presidency for hosting this event, and I would like to express my pleasure to meet face-to-face with you after a long time. As it is known, we are going through an extremely painful period in which the COVID-19 pandemic negatively affects our lives. I'd like to express my grief that around 5 million people lost their lives in this global pandemic, and I'd like to offer my condolences to those who lost their loved ones. The G20 has now evolved into a platform that addresses not only fundamental economic and financial issues, but also many other ones. In this sense, sustainable food safety has become a prominent issue on the agenda of this platform. Of course, many different statistics and many different decisions have been brought to our agenda, but in order to reach out to targets that we have put forward, we have to go a long way. And we have realized that the COVID-19 crisis adds to the existing problems in food safety, as in many other issues, and necessitates new solutions. As a matter of fact, this makes it necessary to reassess our food policies. The G20 countries adds up for the 80% of the agricultural production. As a result, they should lead those activities. According to the researchers, it has been stated that the food production should be increased by 60% compared to the current amount in order to meet the food needs of the growing world population. This situation upsets the balance of our planet and we enter into a vicious circle. There is an increasing competition for alternative uses of limited land and the climate change is complicating the matter even further. Of course, there are many other issues that have been brought to our agenda, but I would like to state that the desire to consume better and more has reached to such a point that in some parts of the world there are dishes that are thrown away without being eaten, and on the other hand there are people who cannot find food. And unfortunately the numbers on both sides are increasing. Unfortunately, today we are talking about people who cannot even reach to even a bite of bread. We know that 1.3 billion tons of food is lost and wasted every year, and we also know that more than 810 million people go to bed hungry every night. Valuable guests, these are the matters that should concern us all. And at the epicenter of all those developments unfolding, we see that, and we are so happy that we are taking action. Today, we also have the General Director of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. But as we are fighting against those problems, we should never forget that the vaccine is also a very important issue. But we also observe that we cannot take the decision commonly all together when it comes to the issue of vaccine. We always state that we will carry out the vaccination program under the auspices and the supervision of the WHO, but unfortunately, we are not accepting and recognizing the vaccines everywhere, which is being recognized by the WHO. Yesterday, we have discussed the problems of having an access to vaccination. This is not a charity work. This is a responsibility and obligation for all of us, but we cannot discriminate among the vaccines. And if you do this, and if we make those people are getting vaccinated and prevent them from traveling to different countries, this is not acceptable. The European Union and the WHO is implementing different criteria. And if this is the case, in a world where the right to live is a fundamental right, then we have to feed ourselves. We have to find food in order to live. And against this pandemic, which can kill every one of us, if we cannot act together, then we cannot speak about the food sustainability and how can we act together in order to logistically provide the food. Our civilization dictates that it is a shame to sleep full while your neighbor is hungry. So that should be the mentality that we should all embrace. So, valuable participants, we should rethink our situation again. The main and fundamental right for every human being is the right to live. But all those criteria and laws, however you define it, it doesn't matter. If we are not acting together, then the limited resources of this universe will be consumed very swiftly, as it is pointed out in the statistics of the president. We will reach to those scary numbers, and this will be a disaster for every one of us. And I do believe COVID-19 pandemic was a big warning for all of us. Thank you so much for your patience. I extended my speech. I would like to thank for your tolerance, and I would like to thank all our Italian friends and Italian people for the hospitality shown towards us. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you, dear colleague. Mr. Speaker, let me now give the floor to Haribansh Narayana Singh, Deputy Chairman of the Council of States of India. You have the floor. Mr. Haribansh Narayan.
Distinguished participants, I compliment the organizers for choosing the important and contemporary topic of sustainability and food security after pandemic for discussion. COVID has given us an opportunity to introspect on ensuring food and nutrition for all particularly during these challenging times. It's a matter of great satisfaction for us that even during the worst phases of pandemic, the agricultural sector in India remained resilient. This was possible due to tireless efforts of millions of farmers and farmer-friendly policies of the government. This resulted in highest ever production food grain of 308 million tons. Apart from catering to domestic demand and exports, India also assisted with supply of food grains to the countries in need. India's 1.37 billion population means that we are responsible for managing food security of about 18% of the world population. During the difficult COVID times, India not only continued its national food and nutrition programs, but also augmented them with additional measures to ensure affordable food for all. India had recognized right to food through the National Food Security Act in 2013. It also acknowledges the right to food as a fundamental right in our constitution. Under the targeted public distribution system, the government distributes highly subsidized food grains to over 810 million people across the country, one of the largest schemes in the world. In order to support the farm sector during COVID, India had initiated world's largest direct benefit transfer mechanism to provide cash assistance to over 113.7 million farmers. Implementation of such a scheme at a scale was enabled by unique identification system, Aadhaar, a technological intervention to provide government assistance. An umbrella relief package worth $22 billion named Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Package was rolled out to further cater to the demand for food grains. This ensured that additional 60 million metric tons of food grains were made available for distribution since April 2020 during COVID period. To extend these benefits to domestic migrant population, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi also announced the One Nation, One Food card, a scheme that allows portability of food cards to access benefits anywhere within the country. In addition, the government has also continuously addressed the nutrition requirements of children by providing midday meal scheme in schools, another largest program of the kind in the world. The rise in frequency and intensity of natural disasters like floods, droughts due to climate change is likely to increase water shortages, loss of agricultural land and livestock, among other challenges. This urgently warrants an introspection to develop resilient and sustainable food supply chain. Esteemed speakers of parliaments, I feel happy to share through this August forum our new efforts. Our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi recently launched 35 new crop varieties to address twin challenges of climate change and malnutrition. These crops have shorter harvesting period and higher nutritional value. The crop varieties range from drought-tolerant chickpeas to early maturing variety of soybean to disease-resistant millet and rice. To increase the nutritional content, India has also planned to supply fortified rice under key government schemes by 2024. Additionally, wide-ranging agricultural sector reforms have been made which expand the market access and provide greater flexibility to farmers for their produce. It is worthwhile to mention that 86% of Indian farmers come under the category of small farmers who allow subsistence model of agriculture within very low carbon footprints, thus an ideal example of sustainable consumption and production pattern. India believes in addressing food security in comprehensive manner by promoting sustainable agriculture, protect biodiversity, alongside securing better health outcomes. India is committed to strengthen food and agriculture sector by doubling the farmers' income in coming years. We also see sustainability of agriculture sector as an important anti-poverty tool, a means to provide gainful and decent employment. As public representatives, we see global food security the most crucial aspect of humanity. Being one of the oldest civilizations, we are driven by our core value and believe Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is family, since ancient times. India and its parliament are committed to work with the global community to address concerns around food security and achieve targets under Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. Parliament has always been proactive in enabling all necessary legal, financial and administrative framework in place to achieve the required targets with due foresight. Excellencies, the official development assistance ODA provided by developed countries constitute an important source for financing the needs and SDGs of emerging economies. There is need for united voice to ensure that the developed countries honor their ODA commitments, especially in the unprecedented times. I thank the host country, Italy, for extending warm hospitality and efficient logistic support to make our stay comfortable. I hope our deliberations on this important issue of global concern will go a long way in strengthening parliamentary support in promoting sustainable agriculture practices and food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I will now give the floor to Rodrigo Pacheco, Speaker of the Senate of Brazil. Good morning. I would like to extend my greetings to the speakers of the Senate and the Italian Chamber of Deputies on behalf of the Brazilian Senate. Thank you very much for your hospitality. I would also like to congratulate Honorable CASINI on his moderator role. This parliamentary meeting is of a global nature and is unique, especially at a time when we're facing one of the greatest humanitarian crises. And if it is true that we must maintain unity and focus on facing the COVID-19 pandemic, it is also true that there are other issues that are fundamental for the world and its health. First of all, I would like to emphasize some of the achievements of the Brazilian National Congress implemented in the last 5 years. Those are important and innovative measures, mainly social security reform, the modernization of the employment law, limit establishment on public spending, the central bank autonomy, a legal framework for basic sanitation, a law in the field of sustainable energy, as well as a new program on education, and then human rights of women. No. Of course, these are problems that require urgent solutions. Nevertheless, they have to be taken into account jointly, and more specifically, I'd like to focus on economic inequalities. As long as there'll be hunger and misery in the world, we will have common problem to all countries. I also believe that the pursuit for world peace, repudiation of intolerance, and respect for differences should be the keynote of the relationships among nations. And this greatly depends on good diplomacy. And by the same token, the promotion of economic and equitable development, which is a backbone for human and social development, can no longer be separated from real and intelligent environmental preservation. We must prepare to face this challenge, and this is mandatory and must remain on top of the relevant agenda for the National Congress of Brazil. And then we have hunger, world peace, and environmental preservation. All of these themes are fundamental to the attainment of food security. And Brazil is a very big country, and we have vast agricultural lands, we have fertile soils, we have plenty of water, and we evolved in cultivation techniques, and we have increased our productivity, and as a result, we have decreased on our impact on the environment. We have a leading role when it comes to renewables. We have the energy matrix of Brazil consists of hydroelectric, 62%, wind, 8.6%, biomass, 8.5%, and solar, 3.1%. This is clean, renewable, and sustainable. We can significantly expand these figures, and we will continue to strive to attain the goal of completely decarbonizing our energy mix. Brazil has 66% of its territory, which is made up of native forest. So we are biodiversity rich. We have invested massively on technology. We are still doing so. And let me tell you this: we are against illegal logging. Well, this potential adds up to other themes, including improvement of logistics in the country. Let me just say that the federal state has approved a bill that establishes a new legal framework for railways, and this changes and expands our logistical network and allows agricultural production to be handled in a more effective way. Well, we want to ensure food security. This means bringing peace, not only to fight against hunger. We also want to develop our nation, not only for the sake of Brazil, but for the sake of the whole Latin America and the world, because the other countries of the world are our partner in this challenge. Let me conclude. I would like to remind you the words of the Holy Father Francis' encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti, on fraternity and social friendship. Our Holy Father expressed his concerns on the importance of fighting hunger, and we rely on the support of all countries, so well represented by your excellencies today in this important and timely event. Thank you very much. Thank you. I will now give the floor to Puan Marani, Chairman of the Chamber of Representatives of India. Puan Parani, you have the floor. Indonesia.
Honorable Chairperson and distinguished delegates, the pandemic has caused a humanitarian crisis that affects all countries without exception. The WHO report reveals a grim reality. It is estimated that at least 720 to 810 million people affected by hunger in 2020, an increase of 20% compared to the previous year. The pandemic has also aggravated malnutrition and increased stunting rate. We know that food is the most essential need for the human being. Food security must meet the needs of people, planet, and prosperity. For people, by contributing to reduce poverty and inequality. For the planet, the production and consumption of food products should be done in a sustainable manner. For prosperity, by improving the welfare of farmers, especially poor farmers. To address the issue of global food security, we need to take strategic action. First, to promote a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient global food system. We need a global framework that covers food price stability, trade of food products, reserve of strategic food products, as well as the impact of geopolitics and climate change to food production. The system should also address early detection mechanism of potential hunger and malnutrition and market information database. Second, to ensure open, fair, and transparent and non-discriminatory trade in food and agriculture commodities. The trade of food commodities is essential to guarantee the supply chains of agricultural products and access to food for poor households. Third, to provide financial and technical support to improve food production and distribution in developing countries. The pandemic has offered a good lesson for each country to ensure the supply of essential health and food products. To achieve it, we need to conduct joint research program, innovation and technology transfer in production development, and efficient distribution of food commodities, including effort to reduce food loss and waste. Fourth, we need accurate data to understand the state of play of food security, both at the global and national level. Accurate data based on information of supply and demand will guide us in the right policy. At the national level, Indonesia continues to strive to realize the availability to nutritious food and ensure decent life for our people. To support our effort, Indonesia has developed comprehensive legislation such as the food law. The law has been followed by recently with the establishment of National Food Agency to cope with various issues in the food sector. To ensure food security for over 270 million of its population, Indonesia has taken multiple measures, increasing the production of sustainable agriculture commodities, protecting the stability of staple food prices, distributing food assistance for low-income families, empowering farmers and micro, small and medium enterprises. I believe that comprehensive measures at the global and national level will contribute to addressing the challenges of building food security and to leave no one behind. Thank you.
Grazie, grazie.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. And now the last intervention of the general debate by Nasser Al-Dughita, member of the Shura Council of Saudi Arabia. You have the floor.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Sayyid Rais.
Your Excellency, the President, your Honorable President of the IPU, greetings to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. No, please, can we ask the speaker to speak louder? We can't hear him. The speaker is whispering. Our session today addresses important topics such as food security and sustainability. This session is held at a very critical time in view of the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The world also faces a large number of challenges, namely food security and sustainability after the pandemic. And we need to collaborate together to find fair solutions, taking the interests of all into account and based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities set out in international agreements. International experiences during the pandemic were very similar, among which our own experience in Saudi Arabia. It was a rich experience. And we have given attention and priority to ensuring food security in light of the different challenges we face in the kingdom. My country allocated 2 billion riyals to fund the import of food staples in 2021. We also continued the process of development, maintaining our advances in terms of international indexes on food security. This index is one of the sub-indexes under the food security umbrella in our country. It also measures the progress made within countries and the reason for insecurity. The lack of availability or the high cost and the need to adapt to climate change. This index also measures the quality of diets and food safety in 2020. We also have several yardsticks that were all successful during the pandemic. Saudi Arabia scored great success during the pandemic at this level. We reached the 8th position in terms of the availability of food nationally among 13 countries. We were also in front of 105 countries in terms of the availability of fresh produce and commodities. My country also achieved great successes among 20 countries in the world. These initiatives and these measures would alleviate the burden arising from the pandemic. I would like, in conclusion, to extend my thanks to you, Mr. Chair, and to all participants.
Thank you very much. Now for the conclusion, adesso per le
And now for the conclusions of our debate, I will give the floor back to the Director General of FAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my great honor to stand up again. First, I want to send my sincere thanks for all the speakers to address the issues related to food security and the food safety and the rural development as a holistic approach. What I wanted to remind all of us 3 messages. First, food security is the basic human rights. Any country, any culture, any religion, you have to address these issues from any different kind of society, any angle of society. You name it, from parliament to the government, from the civil society to the academy, from public to the private. We are human beings. We have to share this and finish this noble mission together. Second, how to accomplish this noble mission together? We need to share technology. We need to share the policy, enabling policy. Because FAO, we are organization, 194 members, plus 1 organizational members of European Union as organizational members. So share the best practice of your farmers in your each different members. I know every one of you have a lot of things to offer and to share, no matter you're big or small, or you're from the poor or rich countries. That's why, since I come to this office as the FODG 2019, we started initiative, flagship initiative, hand-in-hand initiative. We are focused on vulnerable in the world first, seeds, LDC, LLDC, and conflict regions. And then we have donor countries, not only a rich country, donor country, something you can offer. And then you are recipient countries, and something you need to learn from other members. So a lot of members of FAO, they are at the same time, one hand is a donor, contributor, and another hand is a recipient. So that's a way to share the mechanism through the hand-in-hand initiative. It's based on the big data, AI, and we can show, I think here, Indonesia, as a big country, There still is a hand-in-hand initiative countries because they are very big. There are so many small islands. You say you are talking about the island countries. They have more than 1,000 islands, island province, island country. I don't know how to call it. So let's share. Let's work hand-in-hand initiative. Third, innovation. Many members, you have to focus on investment. Please, you are parliament person, you are legal advisory bodies. You have to have a government to establish an enabling policy for agricultural investment. Number one is innovation, science, technology, research, you name it, all related. Not only basic research, development research, applied research, technology transfer, training young farmers, young staffs. That's the only way to build up your capacity to transform agro-food system more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable. No any other shortcut. That's the only way. No matter you are smallholder farmers, dominant country, this world, we have 85% of farmers, family farmers are smallholder farmers. Even in Brazil, in United States, in Argentina, they have a lot of smallholder farmers, less than, let's say, 5 hectares per family. So look at the reality of the global farming system. Smallholder farmers still dominant in Europe, Asia especially, and Africa, of course, some African countries also are smallholder farmers, dominant countries. How to produce more with less input, less water, less land, and less negative impact on the environment. Solution is innovation. Innovation on the science, innovation on the business model, innovation on the policy. Last but not least, I wish you all to get on board to support your own government. Get them on board, get their ownership to scale up, speed up process of the SDGs. Because only the members build ownership for SDG 2030 agenda. That is the only way. All the international organizations, others, civil society just offer the relevant assistance to you. So ownership by member countries is crucial. I thank you all for your support FAO mandate. FAO is owned by you, by members. Yeah, you are number 17 in FAO. So please approach FAO. Let's work together, more science-based, more rule-based, and have the farmers and the consumers, and for the better future. Thank you. Thank you for Italy, and give me opportunity and to have a chance to dialogue with you. And I welcome you all. Come to FAO, a most beautiful terrace in Rome. If you didn't come to FAO building, you didn't come to Rome. You didn't enjoy the most beautiful part of the terrace in Rome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your strong intervention. Now, thank you for everyone for your interventions in this important event. We now have to adopt the final document of the conference, but before we will have a short coffee, a short pause until 12 o'clock. At the 12 o'clock, the President of the Chamber, Fico, and the President of the Senate, Casellati, will propose the conclusion of our summit. Half an hour at 12 o'clock here. Thank you.
Do la parola al Presidente.
I wish to give the floor to the President of the Chamber of Deputies, Mr. Fico. Good morning, everybody. I wish to thank all of you for the essential contribution offered by all of the delegations on topics which are crucial for the future of all of our countries, topics we have to face together. And the sooner we start dealing with them together and them in the most effective way possible, the sooner will we find solutions. The path ahead has been clearly outlined in the document, and the statement we'll be approving today, which will be an important support to all of the actions taken by our national governments. These are our contribution as representatives of the G20 parliaments. We have had an important discussion today, and when we refer to our planet, the P, which refers to a planet, we refer to our ecosystem. When we talk about the P referring to people, it refers to the people within the ecosystem. When we refer to prosperity, we are referring to the prosperity of people within this ecosystem. That approach is the only way through which we can all prosper together. That is the meaning of people, planet, and prosperity for me today. Thank you very much for your kind contributions.
Cari colleghi.
Dear colleagues, on behalf of the President of the Italian Chamber of Deputies, Roberto Fico, I wish to thank all of you for having attended this 7th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit. Thank you very much for your high-level contribution. I wish to thank the members of the Italian government, beginning with Prime Minister Mario Draghi, for having offered their vision, for having shared the themes chosen by the Italian G20 presidency to our discussion. I wish to thank all of the representatives of the international organizations present, the IPU, the OECD, the African Development Bank, FAO, the UN, for their significant contribution to the conference. I wish to thank the representatives of the scientific community and of civil society, with whom over the past 2 days we have discussed some of the most important topics regarding the present and the future of our societies and economies. We have discussed several topics. We have heard a number of points of view and ideas during our activities and during the bilateral meetings which took place during these 2 days. The contents of our debate will be included in the joint statement we are about to adopt, and the final draft that you have been forwarded is the outcome of an intense process to consult with all of the delegations, whom I wish to thank for having enriched and improved our initial proposal. And in line with the Italian presidency's approach, we decided to structure our statement around the 3 Ps, the 3 themes, which have marked the G20 guided by Italy. The P, referring to people, focuses on the pandemic, the emergency we are facing, and the need to promote the widespread vaccination of the global population. The P, referring to our planet, is an urge to speed up an approach towards sustainable development and towards the achievement of the UN's 2020 agenda. And we wish to underscore the need to struggle to stop climate change. The P, referring to prosperity, is our plea towards the fact that the global economy needs to work on a recovery that is both inclusive and sustainable, and that can promote knowledge and a virtuous use of technology. We have also added a P for Parliament as a way of recognizing the important contribution that our parliaments can have in the G20 process. This statement will be forwarded to the upcoming Heads of State and Government Summit to be held in Rome, bringing together the G20 countries, and we are certain that this will strengthen the multilateral dimension, allowing us to find timely and effective solutions to deal with the major international challenges we face. And with your approval, I will now declare the adoption, based on our consensus, of the joint statement of the 7th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit. And before we conclude our activities, I have the pleasure of giving the floor to our colleague, the President of Indonesia's Parliament, Puan Maharani, who will be announcing the upcoming P20 in 2022. You have the floor, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Chairperson and distinguished delegates, I extend my highest appreciation to Italy's G20 leadership, including in hosting P20 meeting. Starting from 1 December 2021, Indonesia has the honor to carry the torch from Italy's G20 leadership, and we are ready to continue its success. 2022 will be an important step as we expect to carry out a more solid recovery. The world needs to keep united to push a stronger recovery and solve our common issues. Thus, under our leadership, we also highlight the importance of partnership, solidarity, and inclusivity. Indonesia G20 presidency will focus on the theme Recover Together, Recover Stronger to address the global challenges. In line with this, we plan to host P20 to discuss the role of Parliament in promoting stronger growth and creating healthy society, with proposed priorities on sustainable development and green economy, healthy economies and healthy society, people empowerment and capacity building. We aim to strengthen P20 contribution to pandemic recovery process in the context of G20. It requires synergy between Parliament and government as strategic partner in discussing the G20 agenda. To close, I wish to extend my invitation to all P20 members to attend our meeting next year in Indonesia. I count on you support to the smooth convening of Indonesia G20 presidency. Thank you and see you next year in Indonesia.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much once again. The 7th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit is now closed. Thank you very much, and we will be seeing one another soon for our luncheon at Montecitorio Palace. Thank you.